community is now up to about 79 members or something.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
we're building our program together. Yeah, so we just did a live recording, which we do on Wednesdays as well.
All right, well, we're live now on this recording as well, so congratulations on your live recording. And hi there, Alison, how are you?
Good, thanks, Paul. Sal, good to see you both.
And we've got Sally with us again, a great contributor to this channel. Hi, Sally.
Oh, hi, Paul. And today in Melbourne, because we always start with a weather update because we're all in different places. And today it's sunny. With
it's muggy in Sydney.
Yeah, not many clouds at all. It was pissing down with rain and almost hailing yesterday. Like, that's Melbourne.
Yeah, but Melbourne, you get four seasons in one day.
Yeah,
that's right. All right, so I want to start. Today we're going to be talking about ethics and money. And I want to start with a story. And a few months ago, my car blew up, or the engine of my car blew up, and it just wasn't worth fixing it. It was an old car. It just kept going and going until I forgot to put oil in it and it blew up. And so we decided that we were going to get rid of the car. And my mechanic turned around to me and said, well, if you want to get rid of the car, I can organise for a tow truck company to come and pick it up. And, they're going to try and bring down the price, haggle with you, bring down the price. And we left it a bit long. The car was just sitting out there. And so this week, my wife decided she'd had enough. She was going to get rid of the car. And so she rang around some tow truck drivers and she said, look, how much are you going to give me for the car? I don't want you to come and negotiate with me. You just tell me your price. If I like it, you can come and pick up. Don't want any of this BS. So the first guy goes, $600. And she said, okay, they'll be fine. And so my wife's waiting for the tow truck driver to come along, and my wife says, stay in the office. I said, why? She says, I want to just act like a dumb woman. Anyhow, so she goes out, the tow truck driver comes in, she goes out and she's talking to the tow truck driver, and he's opened the boot and he turns around and says, so where's your husband? So my wife goes, well, he's at work. He didn't know I was listening. And next minute they go, well, this car's pretty shit. It's worth $500. I'm only going to give you $500. And my wife said, no, I asked you not to negotiate with me. We agreed on $600.
Yeah.
And next minute she's going, no, I'm only going to give you $500. So I decided to walk out at this point in time. And I said, what's wrong? He said, well, this car's really bad. The engine's this, the engine's that. I said, yes, we told you this before. So, you offered $600. We're not going to take less than $600. And he's trying to give me all the reasons under the sun. He said, there's a dent in there. I said, yes, I don't care. That's what you offered. I'm not backing off. So after I said, look, just get out of here. I don't want to deal with you. We're not going to deal with you anymore. And my wife comes in and decides to ring up a second tow truck company. Again, she said the same thing. She said, please don't try and negotiate with me. What you say is what it's going to be. And if you say $550, you can have a $550 because that's what the offer was, $550. And so the tow truck company comes out again, and again, the same thing happens. He says, it's not worth $550, it's worth $500. I said, so this time I'm out. This time my wife's not playing the blonde girl, whatever, even though she's not blonde anymore. Anyhow, I come out and say, look, you offered $550, you give me $550 or just go. And he's trying to give me all the reasons. Said, I don't even want to share it. Just, if you're not going to do this, just go. And next minute he hops in the tow truck and he's about to drive away, and my wife and I go back in, and he rings up and he says, okay, well, you can have it for $550. And my wife goes out and does the paperwork. He pulls out of his pocket, he's probably got like $50,000 just in $50 notes. He's trying to knock us down for $500. But this brings the question is, when it comes to business and ethics, where do you draw the line at ethical behavior? Because as far as I'm concerned, once we agreed on a certain price, that's what the price should have been. And
Totally.
both you and I have gone through the book where your word is your bond and all that. So what do you guys think about the ethics in this situation? I'll start with Alison.
Well, it's disgraceful because I've had a similar situation as well. Mine was a similar sort of thing, but with a chair, with a massage chair, because mine had died and Tom was going to get me a new one. So I spoke to a company that I'd buy a lot of online stuff for, $5,000 round figures. Tom then talks to someone else and he gets it for $2,000 round figures. And again, it's a thing because you're a woman, right? And so often with cars particularly, a lot of those guys out there, real challenges, they think, oh, it's a woman. If you're a younger woman, I think it's even worse. They try to rip you off. And it doesn't matter whether it's your age or it's your gender, it's wrong. And as you say, in the old days, your word was your bond. You could give a handshake and that was it. People would not go back on that. But unfortunately now money talks for all sorts of things. And therefore people, I think, are allowing money to be their guide rather than their values or their conscience or whatever kind of, as the values like integrity seem to have gone by the wayside. So I just think that that's absolutely disgraceful. And I really love how, you and your wife actually stood by your word, even though you ended up getting technically $550 less than the $600. But, I'm quite happy to cut my nose to spite my face in terms of, I'm quite happy to lose $50, even $500 if you're not going to keep your word because of my integrity and my principles. So I definitely agree with what, your stand.
Yeah, well, that's what it came down to was, you're not keeping your word and you're doing exactly what we were warned against. And it's an industry thing. That question I got asked you about this, Alison, you said in the past, people's word was a lot more stronger. When do you think this all changed?
As I said, I think it's now people are less concerned about their principles. I think they're more money oriented, and money seems to be the only thing, well, gross generalizations, of course, but money seems to be the thing that tends to drive most people's behavior. And I think the more we see that, the more it happens kind of stuff. So whether it's, something like Bunnings say, we'll cut it by 10% if you can find a better offer, we'll cut it by 10% or whatever. That might be marketing. It might actually have come from the fact that since we've become a much more materialistic society, it's all about money. It's all about advertising. It's all about keeping up with the Joneses, having a bigger car or, being better off than the person next to you. I don't know. Maybe that's, over the top, but I really think it's come from that whole thing where it's about money and it's about material goods rather than your principles and your ethics.
Yeah, I think it is coming to that. I do know that Officeworks does offer a 5% discount if you find, which I have done. But again, with something like Officeworks, they go, oh, hang on, but it has to be something you can buy in a store. It can't be online. So all of a sudden they change it a little bit as well.
The goalpost shift. I was going to say, it used to be loyalty to brands, right? And with the increasing competition, the loyalty, particularly from the employees to their brands as well, it's the best offer. It comes down to the bottom line. Whereas it used to be, you would trust certain brands and you would pay for more. I mean, it still does exist a little bit more, like you pay more for Miele, for Dyson, whatever. But the service should be in line with the brand name, right?
Quality,
so you wouldn't expect any shoddiness with good quality brands, but it's just become a dog-eat-dog world about the bottom line now because the loyalty has gone because we've got this, whatever it is, trades, right? Trades are a prime example of, particularly as women, getting ripped off. I've renovated houses for years, and that's why I like something like Airtasker because you put it out and you know the price that you're going to get for the job. Right? Yeah. It's not always the quality of the job, but the price is there. And it's just when you come down to the quality of it, that's where you get that brand alliance or allegiance. So I don't know. It's a fast-paced world. It's changing. It's very competitive with online and that sort of stuff. So in the old days where, your mum only bought from that butcher or from this person, and they were prepared to pay a bit more because they knew what they're getting. If they're getting quality service, they're getting quality goods and services. But these days, I had the same thing with I think we were talking about it yesterday, Ali, about I live in the corner of a busy road. Anyway, corner of a busy road, and so there's smashes there all the time, and the trucks the tow trucks or whatever are often around the corner because they're waiting for the stand clear or the clearway as well. And so they're like rogue behavior. They have it all hand in hand with the parking inspectors. The parking inspectors right on 431 come out and book them, and then so there's that income from that, and next thing you know it's towed, so there's another 350, 550, whatever it is for the towing, and it's a rort, right? And it's the same with the tow trucks with, I'll give you $50 if you can ring us up anytime there's an accident, because there was one, every week at least. I don't know. I just get sort of pissed off with getting ripped off, right? Particularly for your gender or whatever, when they say one thing, stick to it. And that's why I like using these Airtaskers or, any of those sort of set apps, because it's a set price. Before they come and do the job, they can't sort of get out of it. It is what it is. What do you think of that, Paul? Have you used those apps?
Well, I don't know what app you're talking about. What's the app called?
Oh, so any task you want, right? I came across it. They use it on the block. They use High Pages or something. But you put a job out and people bid for it. And then they want to see pictures or they say whatever. And so you describe the task that you want and how much you're prepared to pay, and people bid for the work. And so I've done it. So you get within half an hour, you get 6 or 10 people coming back. It might be to clean your house. It might be to tow your car. It might be whatever. So if you're prepared to pay, say, $500 or want $500 for a car, you put it out there saying, tow my car, it's $500 in my pocket. So that's where I think it has helped these days, because it makes it a little bit more competitive from the dodgy boys that come out and dodgy brothers that come out and say, oh yeah, but. Next thing you know, you whittled down from your original price. So times are changing with these undercutting options through the apps, because people are just prepared to do the work and they're out there that afternoon and it gets done. For example, when I was moving out of a flat, I'd already pre-booked someone a week before, because you got to do the clean, the move out clean, and it's got to show a receipt and whatever. 2 hours before I'm supposed to have the cleaner, so there's some incident with her father had gone to hospital. I'm thinking, shit, what do I do? So I put it out on Airtasker and got someone there who was actually cheaper, did the job, done and dusted in 2 or 3 hours. And I'm thinking, thank goodness. And I put it out at the set price because I knew what they'd charge me. So I thought I'll just put it at the same price, and I got the job done. So there are alternatives, but that's part of the changing world now, from the old way to the new way, if you like, Paul. So,
Well, I think that's a great tip for anybody, because we are in a new world. Airbnb changed hotels. Uber's changed taxis. I don't know who would catch a taxi today. I mean, Uber's just 10 times better. Yeah. So we are in a new world, and that Airtasker
or High Pages, they're apps, but like with anything, it's hit and miss. But honestly, I've been doing it for years. I got a pool fence done, and I put out, because moving out again a couple of years ago, I had to get a pool fence done up. And it's like, oh my God, I've got a week to go. It was done, turned around in 3 days for $5,000. Now, when I Googled on websites, I'm looking at 15, 20 grand with traditional companies with a pool fence. I've just put out, I sent photos. So you put your photos of the position and they come back and they ask you queries. And this guy then was linked to, someone that has to sign it off. So they all have people in their pockets. So I got everything done and dusted within 3 days. Incredible. If I was just doing it old school, ringing up people from the website, which is actually not old school, that's sort of middle school. The new school is, these apps now. So old school is word of mouth. Oh, you've got to use John from wherever. Or, so websites are now where we do our searching, Dr. Google. But now the apps are even quicker. It's incredible. So that's undercutting the dodginess, I suppose, in some ways, and getting jobs done.
Yeah, the problem though is that quite often, the worker is the one who's also sacrificed. So it's almost like the buyer and the worker are sacrificed, whereas the middle guy is the one who's kind of, getting away with ripping people off.
That's like with
depending
Uber
on
Eats stuff. Yeah, like Uber Eats and all that sort of stuff. Uber Eats and things. Because I was
the
talking
gig
to some of the,
economy. That's right.
yeah, during COVID, they had to keep going, but they said Uber Eats is killing us because we're getting 30% of the charge out of it, and it's like it's barely making ends meet, but it keeps them in the market. So yeah, it's challenging times at the moment.
It certainly is challenging times, but I suppose getting back to ethics and ethical things, when I mentioned this topic to you, Sally, the first thing that popped into your mind was banks.
Yes, I said to me, you said, because Sally said, what's our topic? And you said ethics with transactions or something. And I said, well, yeah, with money. And I said, show me an ethical bank. I'd love to see one. I've heard of them, like some of the local community banks, but are they really ethical? I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, like the Commonwealth Bank actually, was charging dead people for money. Whatever they're
I mean, because I'm in financial planning and we had the Royal Commission and all of those big companies did fall foul of not acting ethically at all.
Yeah.
And if that's the world we live in, where all the big corporations aren't acting ethically, how can we be expected to act ethically?
Yeah, and I actually think, even including the big banks, I think that the power is really in the consumer. I think it's then up to us to not be willing to get ripped off and to actually call people out. And now with social media, that should be, I don't know whether like Facebook would allow it, but I guess there's Twitter and whatever else. But we could be using social media to actually get the message out there to people that do not do business with these sort of people because they're really they're quite chunky. I don't know whether you'd be allowed to do that, because I know when I worked for the Department of Defense, we weren't allowed to put anything in our public classified folders that was sort of against a company, because it was kind of, I don't know what the ethics were against that, but basically, I don't know if I'm making sense. So basically, I think as how can we as consumers use our buying power to not be ripped off and to let other people know that this is what's maybe to Google review, actually. That could be the best way to do it. Yeah.
Google reviews.
Maybe
People are
doing Google reviews to say that don't deal with this company because they're charlatans. Don't deal with Smith's towing company because they're charlatans.
I know that's what my wife does a lot. Is she will always go and check out the reviews first before she goes on to anything. And I try to do that, but I suppose I've had two interesting experiences with scooters. Actually, today I had a scooter that the motor just kept cutting out, and I've sent it back to them twice. So they've got 1 year warranty, and they said, yeah, we will honour that warranty. We will repair it. They repaired it, sent it out. It didn't fix it. So I sent it back, and it came back out, and the same thing happened. So I sent it back, and they said, there's nothing wrong with the scooter. It's 100% fine. So I said, don't send it back to me. Just give me a refund, because I know it's not working correctly. And what they actually did today, they said, we apologise with all your inconvenience. And I named the company because I think they've handled this well. They said, look, the law is we have to repair, replace, or refund. We will refund you, but we'll refund you a low amount, or we'll give you full store credit. And I said, just give me the full store credit. So I'm happy to go and use them again. Now, my other scooter, an interesting thing happened to me on the train over the weekend. I was sitting in the train with my scooter, and as just relaxing there, and the train pulled up to the stop, and they put down the ramp in the sky, and a mobility scooter came in. And as he came in, his wife was behind him, and she fell over. And so he freaked out and he hit the accelerator and just drove straight into me.
That's right.
And has taken out my scooter. So my scooter's actually broken and all that.
Are
And
you
I've
getting
gone back.
the message from the universe about scooters, Paul? Give them away.
I love the scooter. I kind of like feel a little bit guilty sometimes when I'm going to a work meeting. And I go, this is fun. You know, you should be having fun when you're working.
Yes, you
But
should.
yeah. Anyway, so I've gone back to them and I said, look, you know, the mic guard's broken. I'm happy to fix that because that was broken. But the front suspensions was already loose. So I've gone back to them and said, well, you know, that's something you should fix because it had nothing to do with the accident.
Yeah.
And they've just gone silent on me now as well. So I'm now trying to decide what am I going to do? Am I going to take this a little bit further or not? But it's just interesting, you know, the ethics of it all. You know, one company, Mytopia, by the way, was the company. They did the right thing by the people that purchased off them. eBay, on the other hand, they have a 30-day, you can claim your money back, but if you're after 30 days, I can't even put a bad review on there anymore. So I can't even turn around and say this guy's shonky because I don't like to leave a review straight away.
Yeah.
Because I want to give it time. You know, what's the point in saying, oh, this is great, and then a week later breaks down? Well, you can't go and change it.
Yeah. No, I agree. But and you know, the thing is that I think something like Google review is great if you can be bothered to take the time, because a lot of people don't necessarily take the time. And you know, at least I think it would be also because a lot of people might take the time to put a negative review, but I think it's also good to put a positive review. Because quite often when we do have good service, we don't necessarily do that. I actually try to make it a point to sort of give good feedback. You know, when I get good customer feedback. In fact, I was dealing with Namecheap yesterday to sort of work out our wretched email. I was on there for 2 hours nearly, and they were fabulous. And I was, you know, technology is not my bag. It was so slow, and I was going backwards and forwards, and I was asking her dumb questions, and she was just really awesome. And we were just doing it all on live chat. It wasn't even like we were on the phone. So it was very tedious and very boring for both of us. But she was just awesome. And so I actually will then go and ask, like, is there going to be a survey? Because I'm more than happy to give you a good review for your survey. On the other hand, Google, you can't do anything with them. They're so bloody big. It's impossible to actually get someone either on the phone or even on a live chat. They're, I guess, just too big. Maybe I can do a Google review on Google.
Yeah. But I'm with you, Ellie, because I do bend over backwards because customer service in Australia, let's face it, is pretty average. So when I do have good service, I actually make an effort to let the companies or the people know, because we are so quick to criticise and put down and judge, and most of the time it's valid, but also we do have good service. But I'd say that bad service outweighs the good service for sure. I mean, Australia's standards of service is really, it's shocking and appalling. It really is.
It is.
Well,
and I think it's also, sorry, Paul.
Yeah, I know that in my case, because when I ring up all these big companies, they always ask, do you want to leave a survey? And I just don't have the time. But yesterday, for the first time ever, this girl she was so helpful that I did actually leave
But how rare is that, right? Where you actually go above and beyond.
But ironically, 10 minutes earlier, I just left a really bad review. The same
There you go. Yeah.
I just went directly to their, do you want to leave a review? I said, well, I've even spoken to anyone. So what were you about to say, Ali?
Well, I was just about to say that, you know, ethics links in very much with what Ali is banging on about all the time, is our values, right? So how you conduct yourself links to your values. So it's the value of the company, it's the value of the people, but the people are representing the company. So it just screams volumes about the values of the company, and that's where ethics spring from. And I think our values have been kind of tarnished, or not our values, but companies' values are a bit dodge.
Yeah, it's a culture thing because, there are very few companies that actually have a really great culture where they encourage people to make mistakes, because even that, quite often we are down when people make mistakes. So it's all about the bottom line, right? Whereas if we put much more emphasis on customer service as a company, for example, then your people are more inclined to give good customer service rather than just look for the bottom line. So it's kind of the whole cultural thing. And again, I still think it comes down to us as consumers to choose where we spend our money, because when money is the main issue, if we are choosing to go to places, and it might be more expensive, so if we're willing and we have the ability, because not everybody can afford to, go somewhere where you do pay a bit extra because they do have a good culture, they do actually have principles, they do have some ethics, then I think that is probably one way that we can change things. And also, valuing people who do the right thing. One New Year's Eve, we used to live out in the sticks, and we had people around, and we lost power. Anyway, so I rang up and I said, look, luckily we still had landline that you didn't need electricity for. Rang up and said, look, our power's gone, la 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 la. Anyway, they were awesome. I actually got through to someone, believe it or not. And within probably about half an hour or an hour, power was back. So I rang back and I thanked them for putting our power back on, and they were absolutely blown away. They said, nobody ever rings back to say thank you. And I thought, well, if you'd given me shit service, I'd be ringing you going, hey, that was crap. So I decided to take the time to ring back and say thank you for your great service. And I think when we do that as well, then those people feel more inclined. It's kind of like it becomes contagious, right? It's like a smile. You smile at someone and they go, what was that? And then they start smiling, and then, it passes on. So I think if we can, as consumers, look for where people are giving us good value, where we are getting some ethics, and thank those people, and then let the world know, hopefully that'll start becoming, you'll be infectious. Maybe I'm just
well said, Alison. We're coming to the end, but I think I might just finish with one last question, which I forgot what I was going to ask. No, but so the service in Australia compared to America. Now, have you both been to America?
Yeah, I spent a year there, but I obviously haven't been there for a couple of years now. 2019. That's the last time I was there.
I know back in 2001, we went to America, and we went to a pizza restaurant. And as we walked in, the waitress turned around and said, hey, you're Australian, you have to tip, because they work on tips, right?
Yeah.
And we said, okay, we were aware of that. But I think in America, was my experience about America, is tipping should be done for a good service.
Right.
I think they've lost that in America. I think it's just, you go in there, you just got to pay your 17.5% tip for pretty ordinary service. Whereas in Australia, we don't tip as much because we get paid a lot more. So the question to you, just quickly, and then we got to go. Do you guys feel it necessary that you should tip in Australia or not?
Interesting one. So always, every time, would just do it because I would be embarrassed if you didn't tip. But then I thought, I started to get such shitty service and at expensive places, and I thought they're taking the piss, really. And since we're cashless, really. Now they're building it in restaurants with, do you want to add in 5%, 10%? And then they're trying to guilt you. And the other day, the service was really crappy. I don't go out often, and it wasn't a huge bill or anything. And I thought, no, it's just like, I think I might have put in $5 or something, but it was just like, that's trying to guilt me into it when your service was really appalling. Like when you're sitting there for half an hour before anyone's got to come and take in your order, and you've got to go up and get them. That to me isn't service. It's just responding to a request rather than, being on the front foot. So I think times have changed. I think, I'll pay it where it really is good. And, it depends on the situation, Paul, of course, because if it's a small business and they're kind of struggling, of course you do the thing. But these bigger groups that just sort of very complacent or, expecting it, I think, those times have changed because people are doing it tough. And so to go out is a big deal these days. And so you want to pay or give them a, extra where it's due. But I don't think it's like the old days where you just threw it down anyway. I don't know. How about you guys?
What about you, Ali?
Well, I grew up in India where tipping was the done thing. So when I came to Australia, I used to feel like that you're supposed to tip. I mean, people used to tip their hairdressers. In India, my mum used to tip her hairdressers in Australia. They were just blown away. But I used to feel obligated to tip till I used to go out with a guy who had a lot of money, and he never tipped. And I thought, well, bugger this. If he doesn't tip, I don't need to either. This was many years ago. But now, since having kids who own hospitality, I tend to tip waitresses and barmen or bartenders because my kids used to be in hospitality. But at restaurants, it depends. If I've got really good service, yes, I will, but otherwise, no. Although these days in restaurants, I tend not to be the one paying the bill. But if we're there's a group, then I will. Or I also say, why don't we put in a few bucks extra, depending again on the service.
Yeah.
And what about you, Paul?
So, I probably should tip a bit more than I do. But I just want to finish on the story when we went on the cruise in Miami. So we hopped on the cruise. It's a beautiful cruise, enjoying ourselves. But they actually already add, in Miami, I think they do this quite a lot. They actually add the tip already. And then they add another section where would you like to tip again? And so instead of paying your 17.5%, you're paying 35%.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, because we're on the cruise and we tried to do the American way, and I go, hang on, I already tipped you. You want another one?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in Asia, it's plus, or sometimes it's plus. So I remember being in Vietnam and Cambodia, and it's plus because they've got this tax and that tax, and then this tip and whatever's built in. And it just becomes confusing. Just keep it back to let's take it back to the barter. I'm exchanging this for that, and it's at this value, and there you go. See you later, mate.
Well, the thing is, in America, their wages are so low that the people have to get tips to be able to get by. Otherwise, if they don't get tips, they can't survive. Whereas in Australia, we're lucky, and I actually don't mind paying extra, my taxes or whatever, because I would hate for us to get to a point where we pay people so low that they're living below the poverty line, even though they're working. That is just rubbish. And people shouldn't have to rely on their tips when they're working, a full-time job or even a part-time job. That should be enough to sustain them. So in that case, I think for us, then tipping becomes optional based on whether you get good service or not. Whereas I think in America, unfortunately, it's quite mandatory for people to survive, which is wrong.
All right, look, with that, it's gone way over time. we
could keep talking about
this. And you and Ali had a podcast beforehand, so your voice is...
And I still talk too much on that.
All right, so thank you, guys. I will see you again next week where we'll come up with some other interesting topic to talk about.
Thank you.
Who can we slaughter next?
Go out there and make a difference. You consume